Okay, so we're going to continue on a little bit from the last time where we were talking about this word Sukkot, where Yahweh uses this as his name. Yeah, did you?
No. Sorry.
Anyway, Yahweh himself used that name to refer to himself. And it's translated simply as Master of Legions or Lord of Hosts, because they take this word Zadi Bet Ayin, or Zadi Bet Aleph, excuse me, as being army or host, or to amass. And then this is the plural. So part of this study is looking at the spelling of the words to see how else can you figure out what this stuff means. If you look in the dictionary, this word here, Bet Aleph, means to come. Monty Judah has a newsletter called Yavo. Yavo or V-O-H, I guess. But this letter B can sound as a B or a V. So that's where they put a yod in front of it. Yod Bet Aleph, and it means that he is to come. It's also to import, or to bring in, to arrive. So if he calls himself Yahweh Zavot, as I said, this Zadi Bet means to swell up or to amass, and then this word Aleph Vav Tav can mean a letter of the Aleph Bet, or to swear an oath. And we could even say that this word is, because the Tav can sound, remember, like an S, a T, or a TH. So that's where we get the word oath, which is something you agree to. But just to show you some more about that word, which is then getting into, you might say, the study using the dictionary. If I start to put other letters as prefixes in front of it, I can stick the Aleph in front of it, and here's a Zadi Bet. So Zadi Bet is the basic word here, but I find the word Aleph Zadi Bet Ayin. And this is the word finger, or digit, but it's also the word for paint or dye. Dye is in coloring. So when the story in Exodus where Yahweh wrote with his finger on the tables of stone, that's the word. But as you'll see that you can use, if this is a prefix meaning basically I will, and you can break this Zadi Bet down to say, well, that which inflates. And then you could look at Bet Ayin, and that's the word actually to bubble. To bubble something up to the surface, and then it's also the word to ask, seek, or quest. So you could say, this letter Ayin is an eyeball or like a fruit, but that is itself something which inflates, right? It starts with just this little blossom and then it turns into a fruit which swells up. So there's a picture of something inflating, but this is the word for finger, or to digit or digitize like a computer code. And this has to do with seeking or looking for something. Looking for what? You could say, well, you're looking for something that is going to inflate, or you could say, well, this is looking for, again, the Zadi as itself represents the word for righteousness. When I say the letter represents that, is because the letter itself is Zadi. The word for righteous is Zadik. It's Zadi Dalet Kuf. So Zadi Dalet means side. So this has something coming out the side. Zadik is righteous. But it's, in the dictionary you'll see that the two words are used interchangeably sometimes. If you look up Aleph Zadi, I can't remember what that word means offhand. Let me look it up. I'm going to guess. If Aleph is a prefix meaning I will, and Zadi is some kind of a sprout. In fact, I just remembered what that word means. Think of this. If you have the inner intention to do something, hey, I'm gonna go over there. For your idea to sprout, what do? You go over there. That's what it means. It means to hurry or hasten or go about doing business. Hurrying, hastening. Aleph Vav Zadi, to make haste. So I could say what Aleph Zadi is to hurry, but again, that's an English word. Like I said, if the pei is the mouth, and pei Zadi means open, ayin is an eye, and ayin Zadi means to take counsel, then Aleph is this intention of the plan, and for the plan to sprout is to say, well, go do it. But it doesn't say go do it, it says hurry. But what does it mean to hurry? It means to be about the business of going to do it. So I'm trying to show you that there's a dictionary definition, and then there's reading into the words. And like remember, when he said he wrote with his finger on the tables of stone, this is the word he used. So it's also paint and dye, besides finger. So you could say, well, did he write with colors on the tables of stone? One reason for doing the chart in colors is to play into this concept. Maybe those letters were colors. Maybe there's something about colors which are all just frequencies and wavelengths of light. So there's something about that he inscribed in wavelengths of light across a spectrum the words on the tables of stone. That gets into a whole other type of study, because sound and light are the same thing, only light is 40,000 times faster than sound, as I understand it. So if he wrote with colors, it's technically the same thing as writing with music, or writing with notes, or writing with sound. It's just faster. What I'm saying is that as you start to study into the creation of how did he make this place, everything ties together somewhere. Starts off here and goes around and ties together back here. And if you're going to seek righteousness, which he tells us to do, the place where he says, I will inflate or bubble up, when something bubbles, you take something that's underneath and it comes to the surface. So this idea of hidden treasure, if you look at a tar pit down in LA, the La Brea tar pits, here it is centuries later and there's still dinosaur bones in the bottom. They went to get a drink and they got stuck and they sunk down, and the tar is still bubbling up. It's constantly oozing. The same way that something from really deep was going to bubble up to the surface, what are you looking for? Looking for something hidden. So to find the word that means bubble or come to the surface and seek, it's because those words are directly related, and if it's directly relating to righteousness or inflating what he said he was going to do, well, what's he saying that he's going to do? What does that got to do with anything? As we discussed earlier, he said that he would restore the kingdom to Israel, that he would restore his favor to Israel. It's like, well, hurry up and do it. Well, what's he waiting on? Maybe he's waiting for us to ask, to seek, to quest. Where do you ask, seek, and quest? The place that he wrote with his finger, what I'm saying is that all plays into these themes that are all the same thing. You understand what I'm trying to get at? So this is like this big giant puzzle, this big giant word puzzle. We were talking yesterday with Rebecca and Steve about making a crossword puzzle out of verses. This is basically what he's doing. She's got one going right here. What I found, and I can't remember the verse, I got to find it, but the word yitzhak means hilarious laughter. It also means to sport or to entertain or amuse. So when it says that Ishmael was sporting with Isaac, Sarah saw it and all of a sudden realized, hey, something's not right here. And that's when she kicked out Hagar with Ishmael. He was sporting with Isaac. Isaac names means to sport. Again, it's another play off of words. It's a type of poetry. And it's laughter. And I found a verse that said something about the sport of the heavens, this laughter, this gaming. And I forget where I found it, but it said that the sport of the heaven was spelling words. Playing around with spelling words is the sport of the heavens. You know, in Canada they have curling and hockey, and here we have football, basketball. Europe they got soccer pretty much, in South America. But in the heavens it's spelling words, the sport of the heavens. Now if that's true, then again we're engaging in his pastime. And he's the guy that thought up all these different letter meanings and letter combinations. And literally the entire scripture is like this giant crossword puzzle. There's a guy named Jonathan who has a site called Code Searcher. And he is showing people where equidistant letter sequencing and all these different configurations. Dr. Carl Baugh had come up with equidistant letter sequencing, and some other people too. And once people stumble upon that, it's like, wow, this is a great thing for not really prophetic, meaning you look into the future and see what's happened, but it's actually, it goes the other way around. You look at these codes and you can only validate what's already happened. It's an interesting sort of gate. It won't let you project, but it'll let you see, kind of like you're showing the road to Emmaus. My understanding is that if you were Abraham and you had to sacrifice Isaac, and all of a sudden you saw a ram caught in the bushes, it's just an event happening present tense. Did he think it was prophetic? Did Abraham really think that, oh, what I just did is a picture of the Messiah and he's going to have a crown of thorns? I wouldn't think so. He was probably so traumatized by what was going on. It was happening. But Yeshua, walking on the road to Emmaus, I'm sure would have said to those two guys, hey, that was a foretelling picture. And then after they saw Yeshua with the crown of thorns and buried and then back to life again without the crown of thorns, they must have gone, oh, yeah, sure, I get it. But they wouldn't have seen it from back then. So when people say there's all these prophecies in the Old Testament, it's like, well, they're not really prophecies. They're only prophecies when you look back and see. But they're not prophecies where you can stand here and point to it and says, let me tell you what's going to happen. And you can look at almost every single one of the things they call a prophecy and come to that conclusion. That gets into another troublesome aspect of what is a prophecy and why the Jews can't see it, something that Christians think they can see, and vice versa. But the point I'm saying is that there's all this stuff around how you can break down a word. And because he chose this word as representing being his name, I'm going to show you a couple other things about this word. So if you look at Aleph Zadi, it means hurry or hasten. Aleph Zadi bet, finger, toe, index finger, or inch. Inch. Why would this word, if it means finger, digit, paint, or die, also mean inch? Anybody want to venture a guess? And I'm showing you this because it's like I could say, oh, you should study Hebrew, and you bump into something like this and go, gosh, what am I supposed to do with that? What do you think?
Just guess, I'm thinking between the knuckles is approximately.
It's approximately an inch, but why would the same word for finger or digit also mean inch?
To inch, like to inch forward to move, or inches in a measurement?
Okay, what does inch represent as a measurement?
Small.
It's the smallest standardized increment. A standardized increment. So you get into digital, and so when you count, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's an incremental unit of measure. Well, so is every letter of the alphabet. Those are the smallest little pieces. An atom composed of an electron and a proton, for all intents and intentional useful purposes, is the smallest unit, increment, where you get into string theory and that's a little different. But we talk of atoms or elements, those are basic units of measure. You can break down an inch into other things too. But I'm trying to show you that that's the way this works. Digitation, aleph, zadi, bet, vav, ayin. Now if I jump up to another prefix, which instead of making it the aleph, is I put the yod, and I'm saying this, I can give you a list of the standard prefixes, is that some of them are just always used, and that's the way the language works. So if you look at yod, zadi, bet, it says to station oneself or take one's stand. Well, if this is the word for armies, what has that got to do with taking a stand? It also means to be firm or constant. When I say it also means, this is an etymological dictionary, so it's telling me about Aramaic and Akkadian and Ugaritic and Greek and Latin and a bunch of other words. It means strengthened, made firm, stood up for, he presented himself, was firm, constant, and also it's related to the Aramaic word for native or citizen. So in other words, when Yahweh is saying his name is Yahweh Zavot, it's not just Master of Legions. And you might think of Master of Legions as angel armies. There's words of a song talking about angel armies. But he's saying here, I have decided to position myself in a certain place. If you say you're an American citizen, or if you say you are a Brazilian citizen, that's where you're located. That's where your identity is. That's where everything about that place is about you. Well, that's what he's saying. And the fact that Aleph, Vav, Tav literally means a letter of the alphabet, then we can go look at the letters of the alphabet and see that that is where we can find where Yahweh has positioned himself to be found. Because that's what the word means. So, for me to stand here and say this, you could say, gosh, where did you find that? Who taught you that? I've had some people say before, what school did you go to that they told you this information? It's like, it's right here in the spelling of the word. You read the word, you analyze you decompose, you look at the reverse engineering of the spelling of the words down to its incremental parts, and you just figure it out. How does it all fit together? That's all this is. It's not like you have to go to some university and pay $100,000 for some guy to tell you how to speak Hebrew. It's just looking at the spelling of the letters. So that was Yod, Zadi, Bet. If I look at Yod, Zadi, Vav, Bet, and as I've said before, you can stick Yods and Vavs in between other consonants as it were, wild cards. And for the most part, it doesn't even change it. It just gives another aspect. So Yod, Zadi, Vav, Bet means stabilization and consolidation or strengthening. If you're going to consolidate all the stuff in this room so you can pack it up and leave, we're going to gather all the stuff around here, put it into one pile, or maybe put it in a box so we can pick it up and carry it away. So it makes it grabbable. So for Yahweh to make himself grabbable in a solid place, that's Zavot. What's it got to do with an army or a host? The concept of army or host is also to amass in one place. Now you've got an army of what used to be a bunch of individual farmers scattered about. So I can take these word pictures and, in my own mind, make sense of them all. That's how this works. There's another, let's see, Yod Zadi, here, Yod Zadi, Yod Bet. So I showed you Yod Zadi, Vav Bet, Yod Zadi Bet, and here's the Yod Zadi, Vav Bet, Yod Zadi, Yod Bet. Standing, posture, or carriage. a carriage, well, a car is a carriage on wheels. A carriage is like a baby carriage is something that which carries. So this is something which, like I said, the box that you can put everything in and carriage. It's that which carries it along. So he has given us something. He has given us something to carry the matters of his kingdom with. Again, they're the letters of the words. Yod Zadi Yod Bet means firm, solid, true, stable, and steady. Remember that for a minute, because we're going to also talk about the word Cohen, which is priest. Firm, solid, true, stable, steady, strong, consolidated, boiled down to this essence. Okay, if I stick the letter Nun, well, here's Mem in front of Zadi. Mem Zadi Bet. Placed, stationed, standing place, position, garrison, condition, post, military post, status. Mem Zadi Bet, adding the aleph, means gathering. Military post or guard. Mem Zadi Bet Tav, pillar, stance, or tombstone. Mem Zadi Bet Pei is a plant, like a factory, a place where everything is put together and manufactured and assembled. Again, assembling in a factory, you get resources from all over, bring them together, and you end up with a product. It's the same meaning of the word Aleph Mem, which is the word for mother, and a nation, and a metropolis, and a factory where you bring stuff together. So Zavot is bringing stuff together. And you could say, to deconstruct it again, the Zadi is the symbol of a scepter. He's going to rule with an iron scepter. Zadi represents righteousness. Zadi is a picture of Aaron's rod that budded, that was put in the Ark of the Covenant. The letter Zadi in the Mishkan pattern lines up with the Ark of the Covenant. So I'm trying to show you these overlapping themes, importing, and then here's the sign of the covenant. So you could say the sprouting righteousness as a scepter, the gathering together of the matters that when they arrive, the terms of the covenant are, you might say, nailed down. Okay, I'm just, again, breaking up letter by letter, so I could sit there and say, gosh, you know, when we return to, we who are seeking his scepter, return to the place where he authorized Aaron, to be the priest, and the priest's job was to show us the ways of righteousness that he wrote about with his finger on the tables of stone. That will herald, like a flag flying, there's a picture of the Zadi, the arrival, the import of the covenant as he said. So I read these words and give it this interpretation, and to me that is then a type of confirmation that I should believe this. Because I'm reading his words and it's giving a message that all you get in English is Sabaoth, words of a song, Lord Sabaoth. And I've asked people what that means, and they go, I don't know, I think it means Sabbath. That English either says I don't know what it means, or I think it means Sabbath, which it doesn't, or what does it mean he's the Lord of the Sabbath? Well, that means he can break the Sabbath if he wants to. I just spent another, 10, 15 minutes trying to show you another way to read Zevaot. It has nothing to do with those other answers I've received. And yet I didn't go to a university, I didn't ask a Jewish rabbi, I didn't have to read it in some book. I'm just trying to show you it has to do with simply deconstructing the spelling of the word by letters. So mem zadi bet, standing place, station, position. A garrison is a military outpost, like a fort. So if Yahweh's castle is the headquarters, and he's got all these outposts like forts along the frontier in enemy territory, or engaging enemy territory, and it's a very similar picture to the constellations. The constellations, you've got these dots that you string together with a line to form a picture. The frontier of an empire or a nation is that they establish forts with an invisible line in between, or maybe a line of soldiers in between, and that says, we own this ground. So something about the things that are in here, Yahweh says, this is my stuff. Each one of these letters is a fort of Yahweh's kingdom. And then in which case you could say, well, okay, so they're letters. What do those letters mean? Those letters mean something, each one different, each one like a different classification of his military, call it domain, water, land, air, space, and if there's 22 regions, if we had a glimpse of what these letters meant, we're glimpsing his kingdom, his domain, his dominion, where his power and influence lie. And then you could say, well, the power and his influence lie within the zone of the place where the inhabitants do what he said. If somebody is within a certain jurisdiction and they don't do what he says, then they get in trouble. But if somebody is outside the jurisdiction, they don't have to do what he says. For example, if the Queen of England said, everybody should wear a little red beret to honor my birthday. I don't care about the Queen's birthday, so I'm not going to wear a little red beret. But if Yahweh said, everybody should sit down on the day that I command, the first day of the 7th month, then it's like, you betcha, okay, I'm going to sit down on the first day of the 7th month. So therefore, what this means is, I am a carriage, I am a vehicle that brings his jurisdiction wherever I choose to carry it. So I become a Zavot. The collection of us are Zavot. Anywhere that we import the flag of his reign, which would be righteousness, I am an authorized deputy or ambassador, as it were, to take his rule and reign anywhere I choose to go. And if I alone go there, backing me up is legions of his military forces. What are we to be afraid of? Well, except those guys that cut our throats. It's like, no, wait a minute, we're not even supposed to be afraid of them. Now that's when it gets pretty tough. How do we go in his name if we betray his character? Now we got nothing. If we go someplace that looks humanly dangerous, some parts of the world, or even up into the forest where you got grizzly bears and panthers, we better be completely in his name, completely under the covering of this Aleph, or we are in big trouble, because those enemies might just want to grab us if they can and whack us good, if they can. But Yahweh said, be strong and very courageous. Rach, Hazak, Ve'emetz. Do not fear, Al Tira. He even went on to say, when I send you out and you face the enemy, do not let them see you shaking or trembling. If you show them any regard, any honor, if you go, oh, you guys are... He says, this is a real verse. He says, I'm going to do to you what I was going to do to them. Gosh, that's a horrible verse. He doesn't say, oh, come on back, I'll take care of you, poor thing. He says, if you show those guys that you're afraid, and I was going to whoop them good, I'm going to whoop you good. And then I'll make them afraid. gosh, this is serious business. Because they're going to see, if Yahweh's going to do that to his own people, just think what he's going to do to us.